Welcome to another Rimmer episode, and another look into his effed up psyche. This one starts off with a flashback of Rimmer as a kid after his brothers have strung him upside down from his feet and written Bonehead on the back of his jacket. I love how his mom isn't in a hurry to get him down. Well, at least she's concerned enough to ask about it.
You've been playing with Howard and Frank?
Yes.
Well, what on earth were you playing?
That's about it, though. Anyway, it turns out that he hasn't been getting very good grades, and he may or may not get held back for a year. Fast forward to 20 years later, where Rimmer is a test pilot in the Space Corps. By the way, tell me this music doesn't sound a hell of a lot like Take My Breath Away from the Top Gun soundtrack. That has to be intentional. Though if they were going to do that, I'm surprised they didn't go with Danger Zone. He gets a round of applause as he enters, and everyone loves him and calls him Ace. So, alternate universe, obviously. There are also alternate versions of the rest of the crew as well. Lister is called Spanners here.
Got that crate to break the light barrier, I'll never know.
Well, some people might say it's that devilishly brave and handsome guy in the cockpit that did it.
Tish pshaw nonsense.
He still kind of talks like our Rimmer.
You'll be going to this party thing they're throwing for you tonight, I suppose?
Good God, no.
However, he doesn't like adulation and prefers to hang out with the engineers.
See you there at 1900.
See you later, Ace. What a guy.
Get used to that phrase.
Welcome home, son.
Instead of cat, we have a priest, who isn't a cat. Not sure how that works. Anyway, he talks about how Ace has been looking after a sick kid and reading him stories and such.
Any old excuse to get out of dinner with the Admiral?
And Holly isn't a computer. Yeah, I'm not going to try to make sense out of this. Anyway, cue shameless flirting.
Because if you're interested, I'll be in my quarters, covered in maple syrup.
I'm sorry, Melly, I don't fraternize with the staff.
I resign.
I'll be there at 1300.
Nice to see Robert Llewellyn without makeup, again. It's actually the third time in 2 seasons. What's with the Wolverine hair, though? Anyway, they've created a drive that can allow someone to jump from one reality to another, and Ace immediately volunteers despite that there's no way of him getting back.
I'm free at 1500.
Anyway, it turns out that he'll be going to a different reality where there will be a different Arnold Rimmer.
You might find he's quite different to you.
Oh yeah.
If you're interested,
And
I'll be in my quarters at lunchtime, covered in Tarama Salata.
more shameless flirting.
I'm sorry, Bongo, lunch is on Melly.
Understood. What a guy.
And Ace is ready to launch.
Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
Get used to that phrase, too. Meanwhile, back in our dimension, Crichton and Lister are trying to sneak out without waking Rimmer.
Lights, just nipping down the cinema, catch the midnight movie.
What, dressed like that?
Yeah, going to see Jaws.
It turns out that they were going to go fishing on an ocean planet they'd passed a couple days ago and wanted to leave Rimmer behind.
For some reason, you got this crazy, whacked-out idea that we're all going on a fishing holiday.
A fishing holiday?
Good one, guys.
I try to be liked, God knows I try. I regale you with amusing stories of when I was treasurer of the Hammond Organ Owner Society.
That's the thing, Rimmer. Your interests are very different from theirs, and you don't bother to even notice that they don't care about things like Hammond organ music.
All right, then I'll come. I'll just get dressed. Holly!
Oh, who woke him up?
So now Rimmer is coming along, so they all take Starbug back to the ocean planet.
Mind that planet!
Which planet?
That planet!
That's the planet we're heading to, sir.
You're also a backseat driver.
But you haven't correlated the data with the main computer banks, have you?
Yes, sir, I have, sir.
You know your trouble, Crichton.
What, sir?
You're a git.
Why haven't you got the guts just to tell the dude nobody likes him? Brilliant, what am I supposed to say? Excuse me, Rimmer. Do you know you're about as popular as a horny dog at a Miss Lovelylegs competition?
It wouldn't be anything he didn't already know.
How about some music? I've brought my Hammond CDs with me.
Of course you did.
I prefer something slightly more melodious, like the long, drawn-out death rattle of a man suffering from terminal flatulence.
Come on, you bores, let's do something. How about we all sing some campfire songs?
Seriously, Michael Scott is more self-aware than Rimmer. Thank God there's an emergency coming up.
Purple alert, purple alert.
What's a purple alert?
It's sort of like not as bad as a red alert, but a bit worse than a blue alert. Well, I say mo.
Holly, wipe the rabid foam from your chin and start again.
Anyway, there's a disruption to the time fabric continuum.
At least I presume that's what it is. It's certainly got all the signs.
Whatever you say, Holly.
There's this big wibbly-wobbly swirly thing, and it's heading straight towards us.
Insert predictable Doctor Who reference. Anyway, it's about to hit Starbug and they aren't able to avoid it. So they get ready for impact.
Sit down, tuck your head between your legs and brace yourself.
Isn't all this kind of pointless if the chairs don't have seatbelts? But I love the gag about how the boring articles in the In-Flight magazine act as a sedative.
Classic wines of Estonia, Flemish weaving the traditional way.
So Starbug collides with Ace's ship and is sent crashing into the ocean planet. Like I said, seatbelts probably would have been a good idea. So everyone is okay, except that Cat has a compound fracture in his leg.
See what I mean? Red with apricot. I look like a jerk. I'm bleeding an unfashionable color.
Leave it to Red Dwarf to play a mortal wound for laughs. So it turns out that Starbug's starboard engine is out, and unless it gets fixed in 40 minutes, Starbug will sink. Plus there's a nasty storm outside.
Anything we can do?
We could try and hire a dance band, get it to play Abide With Me.
Ouch, Titanic reference. So Ace goes to check on Starbug, since he's the one who made it crash.
I caused the smash, should apologize. Only manners.
Name's Commander Rimmer. Arnold Rimmer.
And meets the Red Dwarf crew.
But first of all, let's get you out of this pickle.
And of course he gets along with everyone.
What's your handle?
Lister. Dave Lister.
Of course it is. Put it there, Dave. You look a great bloke to be in a scrape with. Who's the deeply delicious, stunningly gorgeous computer?
Holly.
And then our Rimmer shows up.
God, it's me, only much more handsome. Hold on, he'll have you out of here in no time.
He's a hologram. He can't touch anything.
Dead, eh? Well, commiserations, old man. What a crushing bore that must be. You're me.
Ace explains that he and Rimmer came from the same timeline, which branched off into two because of a decision that was made. Hence the opening scene where Rimmer may or may not have been held back a year at school.
What's your plan, huh? I haven't got one.
In any case, I think Ace is expecting Rimmer to be a lot more like him. He thinks that the starboard engine can be repaired, but it's a two-man job. Of course, Lister volunteers.
Not so fast, Davy boy. You was just about a volunteer, weren't you, one? No, I wasn't.
This is supposed to be a gag about Rimmer being a coward, but he is still a hologram who can't touch anything, so he couldn't have done much anyway.
What's the craft's inertia rating? I don't know. Well, what's the PSI? I don't know!
There's no excuse for his lacking knowledge about the ship, though.
Sir, can I have a word in private?
Crichton pulls Ace aside and points out that he can tell he has a broken arm. Nice catch, by the way, go Crichton. So he insists that he go instead, even though he isn't waterproof. Kind of an odd flaw for a robot programmed to spend most of his time around cleaning solvents and such, but whatever.
I'll tell you what we'll do.
Anyway, Ace knocks Crichton out so he can't stop him from going.
Arnie, Crichton's taking a bit of a whack. I want you to reroute his circuitry and bring him back online.
Again, hologram.
You don't know how to do that?
Though I guess he could have had the Scudders do it, but they aren't that reliable, and Ace hasn't even been around long enough to know that they even have them.
Smoke me a kipper. Can you do that?
Still a hologram.
Be back for breakfast.
I hear you, Rimmer. In all seriousness, I wonder if maybe as much of a Mary Sue as Ace is in all other respects. And yes, I say Mary Sue even if it's a guy, it's just a term and it's not like I'm literally saying that's his name. I wonder if his one flaw is that because of all of his accomplishments, he expects a lot of himself and therefore he expects too much of an alternate version of himself that literally cannot do some of the things he can do. Either that or the writers just really screwed up and forgot that Rimmer is a hologram for this entire scene. Not like it'd be the first time. But it does bring up an interesting point. As I got into when I covered Me Squared, Rimmer hates himself, and anytime he is confronted with a double of himself, it always ends badly.
Shut up, you dead git! Stop your foul whining, you filthy piece of distended rectum!
I'm going to use that clip every time I get the chance. But maybe even Ace isn't immune to that. Maybe despite all of his accomplishments, maybe deep down he still harbors those insecurities that our Rimmer still has, and they only came to the surface when being confronted with an alternate version of himself who is a failure and didn't overcome the obstacles that he did. I could be reading too much into things, but I thought it was an interesting idea. By the way, speaking of older episodes, this one references a couple of those. In Crichton, Rimmer tried to get Lister to call him by the nicknames he had in school, one of which was Ace.
What other one?
Ace.
Although according to Lister, the only nickname anyone actually called him was Bonehead.
Or what about the nickname I had at school?
What, Bonehead?
Which this episode confirms. Also again, in Me Squared, Rimmer says this about his double.
What a guy.
Which is the thing everyone says about Ace.
What a guy.
What a guy.
Anyway, back to this episode. I'm not gonna have anything to say in the closing at this rate. Lister and Ace are repairing the starboard engine. Meanwhile, Cat's injury is still being played for laughs.
He's delirious.
Oh, rubber trousers held down with bicycle clips.
The show is weird.
Ace!
Meanwhile, Rimmer is ranting about how much he can't stand Ace.
I bet you anything he wears women's underwear.
I love that he's making gay jokes, not something I'd normally condone, but for someone as immature and mean-spirited as Rimmer, it works.
If I may just point out...
Yes! We did it!
But anyway, the engine has been repaired, and Lister and Ace have bonded like crazy.
You can say what you like about me, but I won't hear a word against Skipper here.
Ace and Skipper, you sound like a kid's TV series about a boy and his bush kangaroo.
He's not wrong.
Let's get this tea chest up into the stars and back to the Small Rouge one, eh?
So Ace was the one who coined the nickname the Small Rouge One. That's not surprising.
Yeah, the sooner we get back, the sooner you two can climb into a nice hot soapy bath and play Spot the Submarine.
Heh, looks like Rimmer hit a nerve there. Maybe Ace is a bit homophobic too. So Ace is now going to operate on Kat's leg.
Oh my god. Field microsurgery, all part of basic training in the Space Corps Special Service. I'll go scrub up. I'll go and throw up.
So afterwards, Lister talks some more about how great Ace is, and
What a guy. I understand your attitude, Rimmer. He's you.
Rimmer rants about how Ace is nothing like him because Ace got all the lucky breaks that Rimmer didn't.
He probably got to go to some really great school while I was lumbered with I.O. House. He got to meet all the right people.
Lister brings up an interesting, if maybe a bit overly optimistic point, that Rimmer should be happy that there's an alternate version of him who is doing great.
How would you feel if some git arrived from another dimension? Another Lister, with wall-to-wall charisma and a PhD in being handsome and wonderful.
Hey, man, I am that Lister. In Ace's dimension, he's a flight engineer in the Space Corps. Married to Christine Kachansky.
So Kachansky exists in Ace's dimension and has the same name and everything, but Kat, Crichton, and Holly are all human? Anyway, yeah, Rimmer is bitter because Ace is living proof of how he could have turned out if he had gotten all of those lucky breaks.
Skipper, I've decided I'm not going to stay.
Afterwards, Ace tells Lister that he's not going to stick around because he knows he could never get along with Rimmer. So he's going to go out and try to find other Rimmers and see what they're like.
Maybe somewhere there's one who's more of a pain in the butt than him, but I doubt it.
Now, look, don't be too hard on Rimmer. You got the break, he didn't. He's just bitter.
And it turns out that Ace was actually the one who was held back.
By his terms, he got the break. It changed me, made me buckle down, made me fight back. Maybe he's right. Maybe I did get the lucky break. Smoke me a kipper, Skipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
And so Ace takes off.
Ready?
But not before Rimmer attempts to dump a net full of kippers on him. And fails. So it ends on some crawl text about how Ace visited countless realities but never found an old Rimmer as sad and worthless as the one he'd met on Red Dwarf.
It's Wednesday night. It's amateur Hammond organ recital night. Okay, take it away, Scutters.
And we also get an alternate ending theme where apparently Rimmer got the Scutters to play the theme song on a Hammond organ. I guess they're the only ones willing to humor him. That is pretty sad. And so ends Dimension Jump. There is one thing about this episode that bugs me that I've alluded to a little, but let me just get it out of the way. How exactly does Rimmer being held back a year in school result in 3 non-human characters becoming human? Okay, it could be that these aren't meant to actually be Kat, Holly, and Crichton, and they put those actors in those roles just for fun, but with Lister's doppelganger apparently being Lister, that makes it a bit confusing. I think ideally they should have went all or nothing with that. Just saying, it doesn't ruin the episode or anything, it's just kind of weird. That said, this is a really fun episode and a fan favorite. Ace Rimmer is a fun character and it's always interesting seeing alternate versions of these characters, and Chris Berry playing a very different role for a change. Of course, Rimmer is made out to be the bitter, petty asshole that he is, but I think some of his feelings are justified. Despite what Lister says, it would be weird to meet an alternate version of yourself who managed to accomplish everything you couldn't. Realistically, I think it would be hard to not dwell on what you could have done better. Of course, I suppose it could also inspire you to do better and try to be more like them, but they are years ahead of you, so you'd probably never reach that level, and that could dig at you a bit. Well, I guess that's all I have to say about Dimension Jump. Smoke me a kipper, I'll be back for Meltdown.
Lost the landing jets, half the electric's out, and the elastic snapped on the furry dice.
What does that mean in real terms?
Well, it means you got a more tasteful cockpit.